Ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Hello, Ian.
Hi, Olga.
Again, and as always, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing with us your absolutely incredible story.
Thank you for having me. I'm blessed and honored to be here.
Thank you. Well, I remind our audience that your daughter was abducted by a cult member who at that moment was your first wife. And as far as you are an author of an absolutely astonishing testimony, book, a love story, you name it, I would like to start from the passage from here, because today we're covering the topic what a person who is fighting against global cult structure might encounter. Those who try to assist sexually and ritually abused children must be prepared to battle against incredulity, hostility, innuendo, and outright harassment. Worst of all, the advocate for the sexually and ritually abused children runs the risk of being smothered by indifference and a conspiracy of silence. The pressure from one's peer group as well as the community to ignore, minimize, or cover up the situation may be extreme. And in your case, dear Jan, it exactly was the extreme because you were incarcerated in Polish mental healthcare, probably, yes, that's what it was, healthcare facility for 50 months. So, Ian, please, over to you.
Yeah, so I mean, as soon as I realized that what Agatha had been telling me was happening and my daughter was gone, my first move was to sprint to the police, the local police in The Hague, and just have them stop my 3-year-old daughter from leaving the country so that she could be evaluated. And that their response was, just totally, they weren't concerned with what I was saying. They weren't jumping to action. It was, what do you want us to do? You should have been more careful. um you know it's not an emergency. This is, shouldn't a mother be able to take her child back to her country? Just totally, just discrediting, or not listening, not paying attention to what I'm saying. And all I'm asking for is stop this right now and evaluate this child. And it went from there. Eventually I got in touch with the child crimes detective in The Hague. He told me that sexual abuse can't be investigated on a child below the age of 4 without evidence. My child was a month away from 4, but regardless, that's ridiculous, because the child is the evidence in those cases. There's not going to be any more evidence. But that's where the Dutch were. The U.S. just told me it was out of their jurisdiction, and I did speak to one duty officer who got it and told me that I should reabduct my daughter and get her to the embassy. But beyond that, like, there was no help. It was just, sorry, buddy, you're on your own. This is a terrible situation. Don't let them get to Poland. That's what I was told. But besides that, I was all alone. My parents didn't believe that what I was saying could be true. Um, and even myself at first, like, I couldn't fathom what you could do, what a person could do to a child at the age of 3. And it hit me when it had to hit me, because my mind blocked it until my daughter was gone and this was happening. Like, I was writing letters to a psychologist that knew Agata and I, and telling him I'm terrified, prior to the abduction, and just really screaming out, I am terrified. She has her passport, our daughter's passport, and is saying she's leaving, and I believe her. And these people just didn't listen to me. Um, they didn't take it seriously. They didn't see, like, the imminence of the threat, and I did. Um, and so then eventually, like, I tried for 4 months total after the abduction to get help, every day. Um, that I woke up just like in a nightmare. Another day my daughter's gone. Every day was absolutely excruciating. And all I wanted was an evaluation. And for 4 months I tried, and I wanted to go every legal route that I could. Um, and so the Hague Treaty says you can't take a child from the country they reside in to another country. And that was obviously they broke that, and the only way they got around it was by pointing the finger at me and acting like it was a necessity they did this illegal act. um, but when I filed under the Hague Treaty, they said that I would have to wait about 2 years. And so I couldn't do that. Like, I had already waited 4 months, and 4 minutes was too long. And so I didn't know what to do. I was all alone. I had no resources, nobody. Like, I had people I was living with that kind of gave me some feedback, but beyond that, it was just me. And I just decided I had to put myself in the middle of the situation and force them to listen to me. And I believed that if they listened to me, then they would have to do a child abuse investigation. And I because that's kind of like, Connecticut has its own problems, the United States has its problems. Child protective services are a major problem here, but like, in my experience working for them, if an allegation comes in, they have to think about it and look at it at least, and that just wasn't the case in Poland. They never evaluated my daughter or even knew what I was talking about. So yeah, after I was arrested, I stood tall and was like, all right, now we're going to get to the bottom of this. And I felt good about it, because I just believed that people were going to care. That a dad, no matter what else you think about me, but a dad saying like, hey, my daughter had bruises and was talking about her grandfather's private parts, that you can investigate that. There's people who are experts in child psychology that can get to the bottom of it. And even if you do that and it points to me, I'm not worried about it. I'm worried about my daughter. Um, so yeah, they put me in Polish pretrial prison, and I spent 19 months there. And like, I never knew when they were going to call me out or what was happening. I didn't know I was going to be 19 months there. They added 3 months every 3 months, and you just get a letter. So I was just sitting there waiting, believing initially they were going to come open the door and say, Mr. Bryson, your daughter's waiting for you. We're sorry. But that never happened. And they had me go see these two court psychiatrists in Stargard initially. And I was chained to about 10 other people. They brought us up there, and we each had our 5 or 10 minutes. And I walked in, and these guys were just, I could tell they had a smirk on their face. And the first question was like, so you believe in God, and do you pray? Who do you pray to? Um, and so you believe your daughter's being abused, and do you think there's a lot of abuse? And like, I knew what they were trying to do. Like, and I knew it wasn't fair, because those questions should have no impact on a mental health diagnosis. But I knew they spent their 5 minutes with me, and I got a letter that said they didn't have enough information, but they thought it looked like delusional disorder, which is crazy to make even a statement like that after 5 or 10 minutes with somebody. Um, but so then I was ordered to 2 months of observation in Stettin, and this was like living in a room with people who would go out and pick up cigarette butts, chew on the cigarette butts, then smoke the cigarette butts, and cut themselves with razors. Like, it was a madhouse. And a lot of it's because these people aren't getting help and are just being medicated. But um, so for 2 months, I would talk to a psychiatrist about once a week, and this guy didn't believe DID exists, didn't believe ritual abuse exists. Told me that if what I'm saying is happening is really happening, he thinks it's going to continue to happen. Uh, he asked me, wouldn't it be nice if you were crazy? Just like, such, when you're one-on-one with a psychiatrist and he's telling you these things, I knew he was wrong, but there's absolutely nothing I could do because he's the expert and I'm the guy in the scrubs. So yeah, the court psychiatrist diagnosed me with delusional disorder based on the fact that I believed my daughter was being abused. And of course, without an investigation and without even knowing what I asked them to investigate, there was no chance they were going to have any evidence. So it was just like this weird kind of Twilight Zone experience where they're saying I'm crazy because I believe something when they can't know if what I believe is true or not true. And they don't even believe that what I'm alleging could be true, hypothetically, which is they're just wrong. But this is the system I was in. So I went from 19 months in pretrial prison to a maximum security prison psychiatric hospital. And a big part of that was because they were trying to stick me. Like they wanted to give me the most punitive measures they could, and I refused medication, which I had the right to during pretrial. The same doctor that said DID and ritual abuse don't exist told me that I was going to be forced medication once I was sentenced, which did happen, even though at this maximum security facility, the director said, you shouldn't be here. They should have evaluated your daughter. But he said, it's not my job to treat you, it's not my job to evaluate you, it's my job to treat you. And that's when they started trying to force medication on me, even though he admitted I had no symptoms. And during this time, like, because I knew they were looking at like faith and the Bible as just based on those initial psychiatrist questions, I was more careful because I was constantly under the microscope, cameras and people checking in on me. So I didn't want my behavior to look odd. So I stopped the intense research and stuff like that I was doing. I just tried to look normal, like, normal. And so I stopped talking about my daughter, stopped reading my Bible in front of people, and just put my head down and went through that system, got to medium security. And that doctor told me that no one's ever understood what you alleged. That's what they said. That's what she told me. And then she said, when I get out, I'm going to have to forget about my daughter. Like these court psychiatrists, specialists are doing absolutely nothing. Like they're not, all they're doing is making quick decisions and then just running with it. There were people along the way that knew that a mistake had been made, but because they're part of the system and their paycheck relies on it, there's nothing they can do. There was a therapist that brought me into her therapy room and said, I told my husband, I know you're not crazy, but what can I do? I can teach you Polish, and like that's where people were at that weren't just like going by the paperwork, and which was messed up from the get-go. So and then eventually I got to minimum security, and that doctor was just like, he was driving new cars to work every day. I was told by employees there that I was being held because he was making a lot of money on me because I was an American. And this guy, I would see him like once a month, and all he would say is, are you hearing voices? And like I've never heard voices. That was so like just the level of not caring and not paying attention and just going through the motions was so obvious and so ridiculous. And all the time my daughter's aging, and I'm watching her childhood just go away while all of these people are just absolutely inept, for whatever reason.
Yes, thank you so much, dear Iain. And that's exactly what's happening. And as we were talking in our private conversations before, that actually you were really lucky that you didn't end up mind controlled by yourself, because as we know now, and many survivors confirm that in many cases, mind control facilities and mental health care, so-called hospitals, are the same object. And there are lots of sessions that are being done for mind control programming and reprogramming in these so-called mental health care facilities. So I think that was really divine protection that you have had there, that you didn't end up another mind control slave or a subject for experimentation. And another moment I would like to point here, that it's not only physical battle, there is a spiritual side of that, because It's written in your book, and also you just have mentioned that the Bible, reading the Bible, was used against you as a dangerous proof that you're delusional. I mean, there are not so many books that you can get in this kind of facilities, and Bible, there is again, the book that you can get almost everywhere. So there's seemingly nothing dangerous there, but that's exactly as far as we are in spiritual battle as well. God is being attacked by the other side, so-called, or at least what they think that they can attack.
Yeah, and I think like the cult and modern psychiatry and just the court system, and that like it's set up to deny the spiritual realm. Like this, the psychiatrists just totally shut down that any spiritual realm could exist. And yeah, like I all I was saying is like this is evil. Like this, my daughter was taken and it's evil, and the God of the Bible is good, and that's who I need. And I was, of course, I was reading my Bible incessantly, and I was writing down things because I was locked up, and that's all I could do anyways. So what better thing than to implant the truth on my heart? But I could see it in their eyes. They mocked me constantly for it. And I at some point, like after I realized that none of these people were going to help me, that's when I was like, all right, well, I need to just eliminate the things that they have against me. One, stop talking about my daughter. Two, be careful with the Bible and what I say about that. Like they don't need to know that. That's just the truth, and I'm going to live that, but I don't need to talk about it. And yeah, that's it. Just went from there. I just stopped going where they were getting their cues, even though their cues were wrong and they shouldn't have gotten them anyways. Like you can't diagnose someone with delusion based on their religious beliefs, and really you can't diagnose someone with delusion for believing something that you haven't proven is untrue. It's not bizarre. Child abuse is very common, and they just decided not to investigate.
Absolutely. Well, not only child abuse, and unfortunately ritual abuse is very common, and your case is, well, I don't want to use word interesting, but let's say very descriptive, in a sense that especially lately we are heard a lot, well, satanic elites or elites this or that. In your case, it was not so-called elite. In your case, it was a girl next door that you fall in love with your first wife, and she was your neighbor. So again, one of the goals of our educational episodes about our reality is to show that our world and our reality is not only love and light, that we live in a global occult structure that is being ruled by dark forces, and it can be met anywhere. For example, in your case, it was a neighbor.
Yes, it's like my first wife Agata was like the most normal girl that there could be, basically. Like just this 22-year-old girl from Poland her family lives in an apartment, not anything special. Her mother is a vice principal of a school, and her father was just he worked for the city, and I didn't have any more details of that. But yeah, she just this is not just relegated to the elite. This is all levels, from the bottom to the top. And even like Kathy O'Brien is another story, and she was used by the elite, but she was taken from her father was a pedophile, and that was used to get Kathy so the elite could use her. But that family was not elite at all, and neither was my family. It does not stop at the elite. It filters down to all of us. And that's very important, because like I didn't think that anything like this could happen to my family. Not only did I not know it existed, but I thought that this sort of thing was, I would see it on TV, maybe read about it, but it's not close to me, and it couldn't have been any closer. It's my daughter. And through this journey, I've learned so many survivors. I know so many survivors, and these are and I not only just people I've met on the internet, but people that I meet in real life. That just once I tell them that I am aware of this, they say that happened to me. Um, and that it's happened to people I've worked with. It's happened to neighbors that they've told me that they've also been involved or had to get a nephew or niece out because they were involved in this. So it's all around us, and our awareness is what our awareness that it is all around us allows us to see that it is all around us, and it allows us to stop blocking it, because you can't see what you don't think is there.
Absolutely. And also, for instance, in your case, however, the family of your wife was maybe seemingly normal and nothing special, but also it was connected and infiltrated by people who had positions in her city, right?
Oh yeah. The my father-in-law, his best friend, who is also my first wife's godfather, is a judge in the court where I was initially tried. And so there was that connection. I always knew there was that connection, but I didn't think it mattered. And then now there's pictures of him with the president of the city, um, and with other public figures that like I'm not going to speculate what the president of the city knows and doesn't know, but it's highly suspicious that satanic ritual abuse is happening in his city. I have reported it. I have sent him my book. He knows my daughter because there's pictures of the president with my daughter, and these people won't even respond to me. They just block me and do the deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. That's their game plan. They just constantly, oh, not us, it's Iain, not us, it's Iain, and that worked for my daughter's entire childhood.
Thank you so much. Well, maybe we can come back to the moment when you were eventually liberated after being 50 months of incarceration in Poland. Also, the moment you mentioned in your book that is again descriptive, that you were held under the reason that Polish authorities like psychiatrists and other mental health care so-called specialists were saying that they have never heard about something like that. So that means that
Mm-hmm.
you're delusional.
Yeah. They like so their diagnosis, they refused to look at it again, even though it was obviously their diagnosis was bogus just by definition from the beginning. um, but they just treat. Now we're going to treat you, now we're going to treat you, without any thought about whether I need treatment, whether I have any symptoms, or not. It was just the court wants you treated and we're going to treat you, which is, it's a total double whammy. Like, it's one thing to be locked up, and it's another thing for them to try to mess with your thinking in your head. And ultimately, like, the drugs they try to give you disconnect you from deep thinking, disconnect you from like prayer and meditation and things like that. So it's really torture. It was horrible for me, and I learned not to take the stuff. Like, I had a way that by putting it in my upper lip and spitting it out, that I pretty much didn't have to take it. But it was I'm also very sensitive to these things, and I'm aware of what's happening in my head. So it was torture going through that process. But so for 2 years, basically a little more than 2 years, I just said I made a mistake. I'm sick. I have to take medicine for the rest of my life. I'm an addict. I had to just repeat what they told me I was every time I spoke to them. And with is after doing that hundreds of times, then they don't have a reason legally anymore to hold me, because they're reporting to the court, no signs of mental illness, no signs of mental illness, and eventually the court has to let you go. Um, so that was June 2015, and I was locked up in April 2011. So at that point, like, I got my passport renewed. They wanted my dad to come over or someone to come over. They didn't want to release me to myself, which I'm not sure if that's legal or not. But so my dad came over, and it took me a while to like reacclimate back to life and to feel okay again. Like I was in a defensive position for a long time where I had to say what they wanted me to say. I couldn't show any emotion. I couldn't ever be angry or upset or depressed. And I had to do that for years. So just like getting back in my own space where I can do what I want. I can open the door when I want to. I can go for a bike ride. That was a process that took a couple months to kind of like feel like myself again. And I also, sorry, I also went to a psychiatrist in the Netherlands after I was released. I paid him just to tell me that the Polish psychiatrists were wrong, because I wanted the validation, like it was just like, come on, like somebody, I want the documentation that these guys messed up. And that was what I was locked up for so long that I had so much to do when I got out to get back on track. Eventually it lead to me writing my book. But
exactly. Well, that's another moment we would like to cover today, that as we will mention in the previous episode, that well, at least for me, it's definitely one of the biggest book I have read about the realities we are living in, about satanic ritual abuse, and just a true story of so-called simple man, but an ordinary hero, is at least that you are from media. Yeah, this book is a testimony, is a love letter, is a love story. It's just many things we can name it. And why did you decide to write your book, and how it was in the process for you?
So even before the abduction, I knew I was going to write something. And it's funny how these things happen, and now you have like a sense of what is going to happen. And sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But like I told Agata, I'm going to write this book about you, and I'm going to use your name. And of course, I had no idea what that meant, because my daughter hadn't been abducted yet when I told her that. But I've always been like a researcher and a person who wants to get to the bottom of things and like saves things. And it just kind of happened where like during this time I was journaling, I was writing emails, which became evidence. And I just kept doing that. And when I was in prison, I wrote about everything every day. Like I looked at it like I was a test subject, and how I feel, what I'm doing, just everything that I'm thinking. And I had stacks and stacks of journals after prison. And I knew that I was writing a book, but I didn't know what exactly that was going to be. And then I got home from prison, and I had these journals, and I burned the journals. I put stacks and stacks of journals in the fireplace, and it was because I was placing too much value on them. Like I wouldn't have sold them for $1 million, and I saw that as me believing that something I was going to do was going to change the situation, kind of like how I thought me going to Poland and getting arrested was going to change the situation. And I wanted to get rid of that and totally relinquish it to God. And like I'm going to do my best, but I'm not the one that's doing the hard work. I'm not the one that's going to make this wall fall. Like, and so that was part of the process, is getting rid of those things and saying, just if I'm supposed to write something, then tell me what it is, because otherwise my mind is going to make something, and I don't want it to be just something I make. I want it to be what it needs to be. So I kept writing, and I kept researching and praying, and just eventually it just came to me. It hit me what it was supposed to be. I could see it. And it turned out like it's the memoir part of it. The parts about me are just so that the storyteller more than anything. No, so that like I'm I write about things that I are like some of the last things that I would want people to know about me. And I used to be very private, and it's just like I don't have that option anymore. So I wanted people just to know that, hey, this guy is being honest. Like he's not afraid of whatever is true about him, and he realizes he's not perfect, right? But he's also got this other story to tell. So let's get beyond Iain, which is where like the world has been stuck, the cult has been stuck, the Polish justice system stuck at Iain. Move beyond that and look at the rest of the story. And so I just tried to intertwine like where I was in life, what I was thinking, what I wanted with what was happening, and all the communication between Agata and I, everything that I was experiencing as a new father, and with this crazy situation that I couldn't see yet, but you can see what I was seeing as it progresses, and you can see what I did, and that I was trying to get help. And I was terrified prior to the abduction because of what Agata was telling me, and I was trying to get help. And after the abduction, I was trying to get help, and just it vividly shows like how this abduction happened each step of the way, and how the ball was dropped each step of the way, and where the holes are, and what we need to do to tighten up these holes so that more children don't fall in the cracks. Because that, and also just how something like this can happen in a normal home. You know, how we believe the world is a certain way and our spouses are a certain way, but we really have no idea. And I think that's what I wanted to tell the story in a way that like can show like hope, and like I have hope and joy even in losing the thing that I would have chosen to be the last thing to lose. And it's it's because of this process. It's because of knowing evil, and through that I know good, and I know we win. But it's also like something that people need to stop avoiding, and stop. We can't bury our heads in the sand, because it is next door. It is down the street, and it could be your child. So I wanted to just lay out the story of Adele and Agata as clearly and concisely as possible, but 600 pages, so there's a lot in there. But I didn't want to leave any gaps. I wanted it to be just this is not only Iain's story, but it's a document which shows how his family was destroyed by a cult. And I think that it has the potential to help a lot of people to understand our world, and potentially their children, and just what's happening to our children in this world. You know, it's not only my child. This is so many more people. And if it's not your child right now, down the generations, they will get into your family. Like they don't stop. It's not the elite, it's my family, and it would eventually be everyone's family.
Absolutely, because that's the plan.
Yeah.
Dear Iain, I just can confirm that this book is written with such a brutal honesty that no any so-called delusional person can write. So to wrap up, dear Iain, maybe, and we hope that there are some parents that might be in the similar situation and might come across our interviews. What would be your message for them?
I think the first message is educate ourselves, and like even like through my undergraduate, my graduate education, my working in child protective services, the world, there's no education about this sort of thing in the world or in our institutions. Olga, you know that like therapists are not being taught about this. But so I think education, like not with paranoia, not with fear, but just with knowing the way things are and the reality of things brings a peace, and will bring safety to your children. And it's like, and I'm not afraid I'm not afraid at all, but I'm not afraid of like people or what they could do if I have more children, because I'm aware of these things. And so therefore it's very hard to deceive me on these things again. I had to learn the hard way, and I don't want other people to learn the hard way. So it's just educate yourself. And what when you at the same time that you're learning about what this evil is, you also learn about what the hope is and what the truth is and what the opposite of what they're doing is. I think we need to trust our children like that. My daughter was talking to me in the way that a 3-year-old talks, and there were signs, and I trusted Agata just 100% unfailingly, and I was also afraid of betraying her. And I think, I'm not saying don't trust your spouse, because I think we need to trust our spouses, but we also need to be wise, and we need to realize that our spouse might not even know that this has happened to them. And like if a fear of betrayal comes up, that's a red flag. Like because they're me thinking my daughter should go see a doctor should in no way threaten my first wife, right? Like that, the fact that that threatened her, or that I would have to be afraid of that, means there's something going on. So I think pay attention to what your emotions are telling you. To pay attention. I had panic disorder for a long time because something was happening that I couldn't describe or define. And these things they're trying to tell you something about your environment, about what's going on. So just pay attention, and don't write it off. Don't think it's impossible. Consider the extremes, right? Like consider that. Don't think that the extreme is what happened right off the bat, but don't discount it either. Like it could be the extreme. And just realize that there are predators, and that these people don't look like predators. They blend in, and their intention is to blend in and have access to your children. And again, it's not about being paranoid. It's just about being aware. And yeah, I think I think awareness is the first step, educating. And from there, you know, choosing no first for our own families, and then for everyone else's family and children. Like this, it's not okay. And we need to listen to the survivors, and we need to say it's not okay in whatever way we can in our own circles, right? Like not everyone is going to do podcasts, not everyone is going to write books, but we need to be paying attention to those in our worlds, in our lives, and realizing that there are slaves walking around amongst us. And my daughter is one of them.
Thank you so much. And yes, I can only confirm that indeed there is absolutely zero education about mind control in the psychologist universities, which I was created from also with excellence. And however, there was absolutely zero information about mind control, and of course about ritual abuse. So we do have to educate and ourselves about our relatives and those who are around us, because that is unfortunately the structure of the world we are living in. So, dear Iain, it's an honor for me to know you. For me also, you are an example of that healthy masculinity that we really need in our times. A father defender of his family, his daughter. And I know that you're still fighting, your battle is going on, but we do know that we win, and God bless you for everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Olga. It's been an honor to be here with you.
Likewise.